Hi, in this video we are going to look at how to create and use multi-dimension arrays in JavaScript. A multi-dimension array is an array that can actually contain more arrays within it. So each element within the array actually contains another array. So you can add an extra dimension to the array. So we're going to look at how to create two-dimension arrays, which is where an array contains multiple arrays. Alright, might sound a little bit confusing, but we'll work through some examples. So let's just take a step back for a moment and have a look at how to create normal single or one-dimension arrays in JavaScript. So you'd create an array like this. You'd say var, give it a name, and then in square brackets you could store separate values. Alright, so here we've got some string values, we've got some names. Oops. Alright, so we've got some names of people in this array, and these are three elements in the array, three string values. Alright, and if we wanted to display one of these values in the console, then we could reference it using index. So 0 would reference the first value, 1 would reference the second value, and 2 would get the third value or third element in the array. Alright, so we could log that to the console. We can refresh this page here and open up the console, just right click the page, inspect, and then console, and here we can see Jack's name has logged it to the console. So that's the third element represented by index 2 because we count from 0, so 0, 1, 2. So third element in the people array is logged to the console. Alright, so this is a single dimension array. There's three separate values in here. But we can actually create arrays within arrays, and those are called multi-dimension arrays. Alright, so let's go back and we'll create this array again. But this time in the square brackets, we'll just add a semicolon at the end of that line now. But this time within the square brackets, we can actually create more pairs of square brackets, and each one separated by a comma. And we don't have to do this on multiple lines. We could do all of this on one line of code, but it might just be a bit easier to read on separate lines of code. And then within each of these square brackets, these are actually arrays, and we can add elements to those arrays. So for example, we could add a group of names here, and that might be one group of people, and then we could add a group of names in here, and that might be a separate group of people. And maybe if these were sports teams and we wanted to keep each team separate, a group of names separate, we could do that. Or we could even add different bits of information about one person. So for example, we might have Joe, and then we might specify, say, Joe's age and location, and that would be stored within one array, which is actually stored in another array. Alright, so we can have multiple arrays here. We might have an array for Alice, which stores all the information about her, like her age and location, and then we could have another array for I think it was Jack, and all the information about him. Alright, so this is a multi-dimension array, and this is a two-dimension array. There's one array here, another array here, and another array here, each containing three elements, and all three of these arrays are stored within the people array. Alright, so it's got two dimensions, the inner and the outer. Alright, and we could go and add more arrays just separated by commas, and whether it's on separate lines or not doesn't matter. Okay, so now let's log this to the console. And we can just log the whole array to begin with and just see what that looks like. There we go. We can see this array has three elements, which themselves contain three elements. All right. So three elements within the array, and then each of those elements contains three values. All right. So we've just logged the whole array. But now we can look at what would happen if we said something like this, All right, so if we put an index in the square brackets, what's going to happen is we'll get all the information about the first element from the first dimension of this array. So it will display all of this information here. Joe, 16, Sydney. All right, so let's check that out. And there we go. All right, if we change that to 1, then we get all of this information here. Alice, 20, Melbourne. Okay. Now, if we want to drill that down and get more specific information, so let's say we wanted to grab a specific value from one of these arrays within the people array, then all we need to do is add another set of square brackets there and put in the index for that. So 0 will access this array here. So 0 here will access this array. 1 will access this array. And 2 will access this array. Then within the second set of square brackets, we can put a number as well. And that will access the first value in that array. So if I say 0, 0, that's going to display Joe. All right. If I say 0, 1, that's going to get 16. So it's getting whatever is in index position 1 from this array, which is in index position 0 in the people array. Okay, so now this will display 16, and if I change this one to 2, we should get Sydney. Alright, if I change the first one to 1, this one to 0, we should get Alice. Alright, and if this one's 1, we'll get 20, and so on. So it's kind of like rows and columns. Alright, so that's how we can access individual elements in a multi-dimension array. Whatever we put in the first set of brackets will access one of the arrays from the people array. Alright, so we'll get the first dimension, and then the second set of brackets, whatever number we put in there, will access an element within that specified array. Okay, so that's basically how to access elements within a two-dimension array. We can also update values. So for example, if we wanted to change Jack's age to 16, we could update that. We could say people, reference the array, and Jack is in, this array is in position or index 2. We've got 0, we've got 0, 1, and 2. Alright, so we'll say 2. And if we want to update Jack's age, that is in position 0, 1. So it's in position 1. So we can say 2 to get this array, and then 1 to specifically get the age from that array for Jack. Alright, and we can just say equals and then update that age. And maybe just log out that array, and we see all of Jack's information there with the updated age. Okay, and we can even add another element. So if we wanted to add another array, we could say people 3. All right, so the last array that we had in this multi-dimensional array was for Jack, which was in index position 2 within the people array. So now we can add a new index for 3 and store all of the information in square brackets here. So we might add Sally, who is 30 and lives in Perth. All right, now let's just log out the whole array. And then we can see we've got all 4 people there. We've got Sally, 30, Perth. That's the last person that was added. Okay, so that's basically how to create a two-dimension array in JavaScript. All right, which can come in quite handy when you want to organize lots of information in a program. There is another method that we'll look at a little bit later in this series called objects, using objects, and we'll look at something called JSON. Which would be quite useful for when we want to organize information like this. So let's say we have a bunch of people and we want to store multiple pieces of information about those people, like the name, maybe email address, date of birth, things like that. We can actually structure it and organize it in an even better way than this using objects. We'll look at that later on in the series. In the next video, we're going to be looking at making decisions in our program using if statements. Thanks for watching.